Hey everyone, I'm Danny Cevallos. I'm an NBC News legal analyst. I'm also a practicing lawyer, and every once in a while I get to fill in host on shows at SiriusXM like the Michael Smerconish program.
On cam ready in 3, 2, 1.
This is Unknown to Known, an on-cam ready presentation. I'm Jamie Maglietta. Thanks so much for watching. I'm really excited to have Danny on the show. Danny is someone that I have booked many times throughout my career. Now, as a producer, you're always pitching guest ideas. We may not actually do the official booking, but we do wind up talking to the guests before they go on camera, making sure they know everything they need before they deliver their on-camera moment. And so do the guest bookers. But as a line producer, I would always have the opportunity to get into the guest's ear, check in on them, and really build those relationships. So I'm glad Danny could be a part of this show. In our conversation, he gives tips on how you could become a legal analyst, because so many people on LinkedIn have been asking me how they could become, guests on CNN. I figured this could be a great way to help answer some of those questions. So be sure to stick around till the end because we get in pretty deep, of course, at the end of the show. So you stick around. Now, if you're enjoying this conversation and you like what we're offering here on Unknown to Known, please subscribe to the YouTube channel on Cam Ready Media. You can also follow us on your podcasting platform of choice. I have a companion podcast called Think Like a Producer. So if you're someone who's already trying to lean in to new media and create a podcast or a YouTube show, or even just ramp up your personal brand across all social media platforms, that show is really for you. I give tips on how to craft your interviews, handle breaking news situations, and think like a journalist and a producer so you create content that resonates with your audience and builds trust. So check that out too. Now, I'm real excited to have Danny on, so let's get to that conversation. Danny, thank you so much for being here. I'm really glad you could be here.
I'm glad I could be here too. I've been pitching myself to your show for some time now, so I'm glad we were finally able to work it out.
Me too. That's the power of LinkedIn, everybody. I mean, you put
It
it
is.
out there, and that's where we started to reconnect and talk about the show. I'm a huge fan. So my husband would always love when I would book you because A, he's from Pennsylvania, but B, he always loved your take. And as a consumer of news, he really appreciated your viewpoint. So I think it would be good to set the stage on who Danny is. I've introduced you a little bit in the intro, but why don't you just tell us a little bit about how you got started and became an on-camera, reliable source on legal cases?
Sure, Jamie, I'm here to prove the theory that being a television news legal analyst is not a meritocracy. Because if I can have a career being a TV legal analyst, then God help me, anybody can. Because it really is a story more of I was in my probably early, middle 30s before I ever did any TV. And I got to tell you, here's a little secret. I was atrocious at it when I first started. I was one of those people that thought that, hey, when that camera goes on, I'll be a natural. I was not a natural. I wasn't even a very good public speaker. I was not, when I got into TV, I was still someone who got terrified when I had to speak in court. So I was not a natural. I could joke around with my buddies. I was, I had plenty to say around them. But as you know, it's a big difference between that and going on air and talking. But here's the way I got into it. I was a lawyer in Philadelphia. I was certainly not a marquee name. I am not one of the first names you think of when it comes to criminal defense in Philadelphia. But I was, what you would call a grinder. I have my cases. I'm in the courthouse every day. And I had an opportunity to do, when I say local TV, it was a channel called CNA. It doesn't exist anymore. But it was a tremendous opportunity because they had a show every night that was like an hour-long panel show, and it was live. And they had to fill time, as you know, fill time every night for a live show. And so they had me on once, and I did my move that I carried with me to CNN, where we work together, to NBC News, where I work now. And I've been doing TV for, God help me, almost 20 years. I can't believe it. But I still do the same thing I did then, which is after I'm on, I thank everybody and I make it very clear I'm available last minute. If somebody backs out and you need somebody, I'm your guy. Because here's the thing. At the time I got into TV, I had just started my own practice. I had no clients. I had never been a prosecutor. I'd never even tried a case, I don't think. I was about as unlikely a TV legal analyst as you could find. But I had, I think, one, I don't call it a skill, but one attribute that I think still carries me to this day is I love it. It's so much fun. And by fun, I mean fun the way like if you're skiing or doing something remote, kind of dangerous and you could totally, shatter your knee, but afterwards you want to do it again, even though it's kind of scary. That's it. I mean, for me, being on TV is kind of like skydiving, but I would never skydive. So it's like nerd skydiving. It's, you're scared before, I'm scared during, and I'm scared afterwards. So I had one chance on local schmokel TV and I just, started pitching. I learned the power of pitching. I would send notes to people, to producers, and I learned a really valuable lesson, which is nine, maybe well over 90% of the time, producers are busy and they won't get back to you all the time, which is fine. I mean, even to this day, I joke that, I pitch producers at NBC and these are my friends and I work there. I actually work with them. I'm their coworker and I still pitch them and they ignore me. And that's the way it is. They're busy. I get it. But the point is that, I love to pitch. I know it's what gets me on. It helps me get on. It gives me an edge because I'm not a former assistant attorney general. I know that, in many cases, I'm the second choice, but I'm happy with that. And for whatever reason, it's kind of sustained, believe it or not, a career. I can't believe this is a career. When I started doing it, I did it for years for free for the local affiliates. I never even thought it was a job. I couldn't believe it was a job. And then I got a random call. I was in Philly, just got a random call from someone at CNN Talent. And Jamie, if you know
Mhm.
Philadelphians, and I understand your husband's a Pennsylvanian, he can tell you they're mean to each other. And so this was exactly the kind of phone call I could see my friends making up as a prank.
Mm.
And I almost said, blank you to one of the bigger higher ups at Talent at CNN when they called to say, hey, we'd like to bring you in for an interview. And then my life changed. And,
Mhm.
I went there and within a few weeks or months, I was filling in hosting a show. I'd never hosted a show in my life. I had to look on YouTube for teleprompter to practice reading teleprompter. I mean, that's how unprepared I was. But
Wow.
this is an amazing business where if you just have chutzpah and drive, once you get your foot in the door, you don't have to be, the former attorney general. I mean, it helped. Believe me, that's always a booker's first choice. But I'm proud of the fact that look, if you can't get the first three people you want, I'm around. If you can't get Ellie Honig,
Mhm.
I'm around. I'm available, and I love it. And that's it. And I also joke that I might you probably look you Jamie, and I know you won't. You're not going to react to this, and I appreciate that because you don't want to reveal
Mhm.
the secrets of booking. But one of the things I don't do when I come in is ask for, can I have a peanut butter and honey sandwich, or can I have sushi with halibut? I mic myself. I know where the coffee machine is. I make sure I know where to go. If there's a flash studio, I can get myself there. I don't need any help. I try to make myself the easiest booking I can. And I think the positive message there is you can be someone like me who is the least likely TV success story. I wouldn't even think of it that way, but the least likely person to end up on TV. And just by sheer drive and being nice to people and being polite, you got a shot.
If you take us back to that first time, that first appearance, do you remember how you prepared, or did you feel like it just came naturally because of your courtroom preparations?
No, the first thing. No, the first time I was ever on TV. Well, we'll do two firsts. The
Mhm.
first time was when I did basically CN8, which had a very small viewership. But I must have when they booked me, it was probably 3 days in advance. And that's not the way it normally works. Normally, you get booked same day or maybe the night before. But 3 days, I basically shut down working and Westlawed and researched and highlighted. And I showed up with a stack of paper. I went absolutely nuts because it was so important to me. And even
Mhm.
still, I was a C plus performance at best. Then a couple years later, I got a second chance to do the local Fox affiliate. And again, I prepared I had maybe one night to prepare. I was printing things out and reading and looking at every case I could finally find on for a 5 minute hit. And I got on there. I was an unmitigated disaster at the time. I had a sweating problem where I would absolutely soak my clothes in 30 seconds. And every how do I say this on a show? Every buster of a Philadelphian friend of mine who saw me afterwards said, "Yo, dude, you like sweating a lot?" Like,
Oh my
that's
gosh.
they're so mean. And all they did was make fun of me. And, of course, I was horrible. I was absolutely horrible. I can't believe they had me back. I hope I can never find that hit. I'm sure it's lost to time. But again, the reason they had me back is that if it was Saturday night at the local Fox affiliate in Philadelphia and I was down at the Jersey Shore, I would drive an hour and a half back to do a 5-minute hit because I couldn't imagine doing anything else because
Mhm.
it was so fun for me. I mean, going out to the local pub wasn't nearly as fun to me with my friends as it would be to do a hit. And I don't know how to explain that except that it has nothing to do with are people seeing me or am I cool or am I, are people recognizing me? Because that virtually never happens. For me, it was the challenge of you have, 90 seconds. You have to put together basically a limerick, right? You have to basically come up with a short poem of stuff to say. And there's something performative about that. I like to think of it like if you do trial work, it's like a quicker hit of the drug. And I talk about this with Paul Callan, who was longtime CNN legal analyst and one of my closest friends,
Mhm.
brilliant guy.
Like ski
Um,
buddies kind of friends.
well, the ski buddy aspect of this is actually my ski buddy Paul. When I was clandestinely dating my girlfriend, who was a reporter at CNN, we went on a ski trip together, and I said, "Paul, listen, I'm bringing Sarah Ganem with me. We're dating. Don't tell anyone." Paul said, "No problem." I told Sarah, "Look, it's okay. Paul's cool." Paul goes into hair and makeup on Monday morning, shows everybody in hair and makeup his photographs of his ski trip
Was he
with
the
me
lead?
and my secret girlfriend at CNN, who is now my wife, everyone. So it's fine. But I had to call Sarah up and say, "Sarah, remember how I said Paul was cool? Well, Paul's not cool, it turns out. He's
Oh,
not
not
cool."
cool.
No, Paul is my dear friend. I love Paul to death. I tease him about this all the time. But he and I agree. It's, he's a veteran trial lawyer and just a super accomplished guy, former deputy
Mhm.
chief prosecutor, homicide, Brooklyn. But it's a shortened version of the drug, right? Whatever sort of hit you get from doing trial work or being in court, being on TV is much more condensed. And frankly, it's more fun. And you don't have the risk of your client going to prison for the rest of his life. It's,
Mhm.
all you do is embarrass yourself, if anything. And that to me, I don't know how to explain it. That was the drug I'd been looking for my whole
Mhm.
life. And I found it in my mid 30s. And I tell young people this all the time that, I found sort of what I love to do in my mid 30s, which seems pretty old. So I'm, playing a bit of catch up. But I mean, I love the job. I still love it to this day. Here I am on vacation and I'm ready to do a Zoom hit with NBC News if they call me at a moment's notice, or I'll drive to the local affiliate here on the island. I'm in the
Mhm.
Virgin Islands right now. And I'm, they know I'm available at all times.
I want to break away from this conversation to let you know about Riverside FM. Riverside FM is my content creation studio. I am a huge fan of all that it can do. You can record interviews and it'll go right into the cloud, and then you can edit right on the platform. There's AI features that will help adjust your audio. They can also cut clips for you. There's like these magic clips for social media, and now there's a ranking system on virality behind which clip will sell online. So when you're marketing your podcasts or your YouTube show, you have that additional assistance to help you make the choices on what bites will work best for you and your show. And that's what I really love about Riverside. It's all in one and easy to use. So if you're interested in building out your own content online, check out Riverside. I have a link in the description. It is an affiliate link, so if you use it, it does support this show and I appreciate it. I also have a discount code OCR15. Give that a try and stay in touch. Subscribe to the channel for more, and I'll see you guys online. Now back to the show. For legal experts or lawyers that are listening that want to become seen as reliable sources, do
Sure.
you suggest that they try to become accredited in a variety of different states to help them legitimize
Now,
their expertise? Or, what advice do you have for them? Because
yeah.
I'm sure people ask you often.
Okay. Jamie, I'll reveal some of my emotional frailties here. Every time I get asked this question, I worry that I'm giving young lawyers who are better and smarter than me the
Mm,
ammunition they need to take my job. And I
mhm.
refuse to do that. No, I'm kidding. I will
No, don't. Then
gladly.
don't
No,
give it all.
no, I'm kidding. I tell everyone the good news is, I'm living proof. You don't need to be a Harvard grad. You don't need to be the former chief counsel to the president. You don't need to be, the former attorney general. It helps. I mean, by the way, those folks get on air all the time. That's great. But a lot of young people want to get into TV, and they sort of create this barrier, this self-created barrier that, well, I'm not a marquee name. I haven't tried 50 cases. That was me when I got into TV. And, the great news, and, sometimes I think, boy, isn't America a great place? That this is one of those jobs that if you have enough drive and you're willing to create content and put yourself out there and pitch and put in the effort, once the hardest challenge is getting in the door. That really is. I mean, as a booker, as someone who did a lot of booking, you know that. Um, but it's making a connection with someone who does booking, and that can be challenging. Getting in that door can be difficult, but once you're in, it's so natural to just sort of keep in touch with people, pitch some ideas, understand you're not always going to get on, and just sort of watch and learn what kinds of stories people are interested in, and what gets you on air. I mean, obviously, people in journalism always talk about the person who thinks they have a great story idea and it's atrocious. Like, you should do a story about my Uncle Ed. Like, nobody cares about your Uncle
Yeah.
Ed. Nobody wants to hear that.
I was
Um, you know, anything self-interested. You should do a story about me and my cases. I have never pitched any of my cases.
Mhm.
I think I have very interesting cases and cases that are in the news. But I never pitch my own stuff. It's not about that. You have to understand the way the news business works, and pay attention and pitch and be available. Being available is everything. It still breaks my heart, and I work for NBC. It breaks my heart when I have to say no to a hit for whatever reason, like I'm on an airplane or something like that. And, nothing makes me more nervous than not hearing from someone in the booking team for a day or two. But, and I say that to show that, like, even after nearly 2 decades of doing this, I still want to do it. And it's the strangest job where if I'm not working, I'm bummed out. Most people like to get paid for not working, but I would
Mhm.
rather work than not work.
Yeah. I mean, for myself, being a producer and, coming from reliable sources and The Legal View and all these different shows that I've worked on, not creating content was hard. So for you,
Mhm.
it may be being on camera that drives you. For me, it's creating content. It's
Sure.
producing something.
Sure.
And that's kind of
Sure.
why I have something of my own, right? I
Right.
wanted to continue creating no matter what happens in this new media space. And with that being said, do you think that legal experts should be putting themselves out there and sharing their point of view on social media in the beginning to try to help lay the groundwork for them to become noticed? Or do you feel like
Sure.
it's better
Yeah.
to build relationships?
Oh, no, I mean, again, this is such a different conversation in 2025 than I think it
Yeah.
was even in like 2021. But I think you have to create so much content. It's something I fall short on. I should tweet more. I mean, I'm still calling it tweet. I should post
I do too.
more. I mean, it's a lot of work. A lot of folks I think get into this and they don't realize how much work it is to even, post. And I know that would be good for my brand, but if I were to point to something that I have not done well, it's maintain a strong social media presence. But I think putting your opinion out there, I mean, you tell me, in many ways, putting on an interesting point of view on social media can get you booked. I mean, for me, I write on my Substack. I try to just
Mhm.
circulate that. But even then, probably 10 to 20% of the time that gets a producer interested. You have to realize that when you're creating all this content, it's not a one-to-one reward ratio. I mean, when you create, you're creating to create. And, if people appreciate it and want to book you for something, great. But I think in the last few years, I think it's so important to create your own content. And I have to say that's something I could do better at. But it's because I have, a law practice in
Mhm.
addition.
You have
And
work.
I just, it's yeah, it's difficult to get around to creating my own content, but I do think that's important for people to do. So shame on me. I need to work on that.
Yeah, there's some lawyers have asked me, if the hits in the beginning are always free, how do you wind up getting paid?
Yeah.
Like
You
how
know,
does that work? I mean, you said, "Hey, you got called by CNN, they asked to interview you, it turned into an
right.
opportunity." Was it the free work that helps you essentially put yourself in the right position?
Yeah. And this is a question I kind of struggle with because, and maybe, this is one of my own shortcomings, but I did local TV for years without getting paid. And I have talked to lawyers who get asked to go on air like twice. And by the second time, they're like, hey, when are they going to stop paying me around here? And I have to tell, like, that mindset, I never even knew it was a job, Jamie. I never knew it was
Mhm.
something that I could get paid for. And maybe that's naive of me. And maybe that's not, that's not a business way to look at things. I probably could have started asking for money sooner. I've heard of people who ask the local affiliates for money, which is like, I don't think they have any money. Like, I never even imagined asking them to pay me. I never got paid by the local affiliate. And even when I started at CNN, I was going on air for them and doing hits. I wasn't paid. I got paid like a per diem when I was hosting at True TV, but that was a job. I had to, I was the anchor,
Mhm.
filling in. But it was a passive process, and it wasn't until I talked to an agent and he talked to CNN, and it happened relatively quickly, and he got me a great deal. But the reality is, agents are not going to talk to folks unless they have already been doing TV for a while. Unless you're, I mean, that's sort of agents. I look, they're great. I'm not criticizing them, but they sort of, a lot of times I'll hear people say, "Hey, I want to get into TV. The first thing I need is an agent." And I say, I don't know
Mhm.
that you're going to get a lot of phone calls back from agents if you're just starting out. So I'm probably not a good person to ask about when does doing it for free become something you get paid for, because I probably would have done it to infinity without getting paid, because it just, for me, I loved it. And getting paid was something that was, something over and above what I thought. And look, shame on me. I've seen a lot of people start asking for money early on and they get paid sometimes, but sometimes you never hear from them again. So I don't know. I don't know if
We would never
that's
book them
so
again.
the
No.
answer. Right. No, I know. Yeah. If you're difficult, then yeah, that's my mantra is don't be difficult for
Mhm.
anyone booking you. Make it the easiest thing in the world. Um, and so I guess when it comes to making it a job, I think I'm trying to answer that in the most objective way, which would be, I think once you're on consistently enough on one network, or maybe a lot of networks, maybe they have there's value and they're willing to, to discuss a contract. But the reality is, I'm unbelievably lucky. There's probably maybe 2 dozen people who have this job. I mean, I can't believe I'm
Mhm.
one of them. But I mean, people who actually get paid to do legal analysis. I mean, I think now that Versant has split from NBC News, I think there's only like 3 of us. I mean, at NBC News that I know of. And again, I'm not privy to where everybody went, so I actually don't know what I'm saying. But my point is that there are not a lot of people who are paid for this job. And now that there's so much, I mean, there's News Nation, there's all these different,
Mhm.
and forget News Nation, there's online, there's Daily Beast, there's everything. And I think because the pot has become more balkanized, more diffuse, there may not be, big contracts available for people. So it's going to have to be a labor of love. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's probably not good advice for how to get paid, but it's the jobs are there. There just aren't very many of them.
Another question I have received was, is showing up on camera and putting yourself as a reliable source to the media helpful for your business? Like, do you feel like it translates into clients?
I get this question all the time. And I was as shocked as you may be to learn that it virtually helps you not at all. It
Yeah.
does. But the first time I did local TV, I went back to my office, and it was a tiny office back then, Jamie. I went back to my office and I thought, oh, the phone will ring off the hook now. And I stared at the phone and it never rang. And then I went on 10 more times and it never rang. The the calls you do get from people who see you on TV are usually people who believe that the government has bugged their phones, or it's not. I say that jokingly. I don't mean to
Mhm.
disparage anyone, but like the bottom line is, the calls that you get from people who see you on TV are usually not great cases. They're not anything that's going to help you. So the way it often helps is, maybe a judge will recognize me when I walk into a strange courtroom I've never been to before. So that's kind of an intangible benefit. But I would say over the last 2 decades, I've maybe gotten a handful of really good cases from being on TV. Maybe indirectly from meeting new people and getting referrals. I still stand by referrals for lawyers are the best way to get good cases. And to do that, it's just shoe leather, meeting other people, creating a big network. And in that way, maybe it's helped, but directly, hey, I saw you on TV. Here's an amazing case. I got run over by a UPS truck, and nothing against UPS. I'm just giving a silly
Yeah.
example, but I got run over by a UPS truck. I saw you on TV maybe a handful of times. So it's surprising, but it kind of makes sense because in life, when you need a lawyer, you don't turn on the TV. You talk to your friends who know lawyers and you get a recommendation. And that
Mhm.
still, to me, is the best way to get good cases.
So you're also filling in on Smerconish, and we've talked about
Yep.
this before. I love his show, and the fact that you fill in as host and you're
Mm.
also involved in the show for legal matters whenever they need a contributor. How did that relationship form? I mean, that is
Oh,
so cool to me.
yeah, yeah. So I've been really lucky in that two people I admired in radio, I've gotten to meet them. But I say lucky, but I've got a very unflattering thing to say about myself. I'm kind of like I kind of crept up on these people the same way I sort of admired my wife from afar when she was a CNN reporter and just sort of glommed onto her. I sort of did the same thing with Michael Smerconish and the Howard Stern show, which I was a huge fan of. And now, I get to co-host the wrap-up show over there from time to time at SiriusXM. But Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia, it's hard to explain. Philadelphians love their local news and they love local heroes. And Michael Smerconish might as well be Madonna in Philadelphia. He's a huge deal. Philadelphians love, by the way, if you're a TV person or a journalist, you love Philadelphia because Philadelphia is stuck in the 1980s when it comes to everyone still watches the 5 o'clock news. They love their local weatherman. It's like going back in time. Um, and they love their local athletes. They love everything local. And Michael Smerconish is a hero there. And so I had always followed his career and thought, boy, it would be cool just to meet him. And then we met at CNN, and I really tried to befriend him because I just was, I admired him. And anytime he wanted to chat about anything, I made myself always available for his show. And he eventually, we got to be friendly, and he asked me to fill in once on his show and host. And Jamie, that was probably 6 years ago. I quit working for a week, went to the library every day. I was hunkered down. I got to tell you, hosting his show is the hardest thing. It's 3 hours, and you have to. I book the guests. I write. It is the most difficult. So every time he asks me, part of me is like, "Oh, I'm so honored," and then the other part of me is like, damn it. It's so hard. And then it's 3 hours of terror, like you don't want
Mhm,
that dead air. And it's radio. It's like
mhm,
it's the purest form, in my view, of communication. It more so than TV. You're right in people's ears, often in their earbuds, you're going right into their brain. It's 3 hours. It's a marathon. Um, anyway, I got one opportunity to fill in for Michael, and I just went bananas. And I was lucky enough to have him ask me back. I'm sure the first time I did it was a disaster, but I've been doing it. And you know what? Again, I'm such a believer in that. They say do something for 10,000 hours. All of these things I do now, I'm terrible at naturally. I just have done them 10,000 times. I mean, I was awful at TV. I was a terrible public speaker. Jamie, I was best man at my brother's wedding. I gave a speech that was so bad long before I got into TV or radio or anything, way before I was doing any of this. My speech was so bad, it was something the family didn't talk about for years. And I discovered later it was the thing that shall not be spoken about. So bad. So my point is, it's one of those things that I just, by doing it 10,000 times, and it's fun. It's one of my favorite, it's almost my religion.
mhm,
I love stinking at something in the beginning, and I just know that I have faith that if I do it 10,000 times, I can't be horrible. And here I am, probably 10,000 times later, 10,000 hours in at least, 20 years later. I'm okay, but like I know that it's from learning my own cadence, the rhythm, and being interested in it. It's something I
mhm,
learned from Howard Stern and Michael Smerconish as broadcasters. Is you just like get really into it, get really into what you're doing, and take it seriously. And I do. I overtake it seriously. Even still, I take it too seriously. But that's my method, so to speak. Not to sound too
mhm.
artsy, but that's that's what works for me. There are
Yeah.
people who I'll tell you. I have a funny story, and it's a little bit of gossip, and I think it'll be fine. I don't think he'll mind. But to show someone who was so comfortable, I had just started at CNN, and I was on every night. for a while on Anderson Cooper's show when they were doing the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman trial, which went on for weeks and weeks. And Anderson went wall to wall every night. The whole show was it. And I was on with this crazy panel. It was me, Jeff Toobin, Mark Garagos, and Sonny Hostin. And me, least successful human on that panel. So, and of course, the great Anderson. And I remember I had a stack of paper. It would hit the commercial. I'm Westlawing things. I'm highlighting. I look over at the great Jeff Toobin, and Jeff Toobin is playing Tetris on his phone. Calm, relax, not looking anything up, shooting from the hip. But here's the thing. Jeff had been doing it then for probably 30 years. And
Yeah.
he knew what he needed to do. And that worked for him. And he was in the zone. And that can be better than being me with my highlighter and my notes, which I don't use anymore because it's been 10,000 times since, and I feel more comfortable. I kind of know how to write my script in my head.
And that really speaks to the point that I make almost every episode is the confidence comes through creating content. And as
Yeah, that's it.
television producers, every show we would test things out and then say, okay, we'll get better next time. And
Yep.
it's the same thing. Reporters, anchors, more repetitions. We had Alison Camerata on who spoke about
I saw.
this. She's like, I wasn't good in the beginning. What was it? Repetition. We also
That's it.
had Carol Costello on. She said the same thing. It's like, it all comes down to figuring out what works for you. But some of the things that you've mentioned that can help our audience is, being prepared, thinking through what you want to say, how you want to say it, doing your research, making sure you have good sources so that you're not spreading any dis or misinformation. It's really kind of putting on that journalistic hat and making sure that you're explaining the who, what, and why through the lens of, say, a legal analyst or the
Yeah.
point of view that may be needed in order for a certain angle to be highlighted within the analysis. But it is about preparation, and you're never coming on without thinking through what you may want to say.
Yeah, and I would add this too, and maybe this isn't for everyone, but I would say, uh, guess what? You're going to stink the first time. I mean, you're probably going to stink. Why would you be good? I mean, this is a
Yeah.
specialized job that people work at for their entire career. And just because you've maybe tried a few cases, you're a lawyer and you're good in court. It's a total, by the way, court talking is a totally different cadence. I could bore everyone for an hour on how I've analyzed that and how I think they're totally different, but it's a totally different thing. And you're probably not going to be good at first. And if you're bummed out about that, then that's a good thing. It means you care and you're interested and you want to be better the next time. But it's like, I mean, anything else, you wouldn't be good at ballet the first time you did it. You wouldn't be good at virtually anything. You wouldn't be able to
Mhm.
play the piano the first day you take lessons. It's the same thing with TV. And I'm living proof. My goodness, I wish I still had that clip. I was so bad when I first started out, but I wanted to do it. I liked it. And I was willing to, to watch tape and sort of
Mhm.
work on and figure out my cadence and the way I speak. And my friends tease me now. I have like news announcer voice when I'm even, off air, which I think is just from doing it for so long.
Mhm.
And it sounds terrible. I shouldn't do that, but that's what I
No, I
sound
get
like.
it. My husband said when I started podcasting, he's like, "You sound like an on-camera personality. Like, you need to sound like
See?
yourself." And I was like, "I have a TV voice?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I'm not
Yep.
on TV."
Yep.
But I had it
You are
anyway.
now.
But I had been on camera before, so, I had wanted to be a reporter. I wanted to be that anchor and that personality that really helped
Mhm.
people and asked questions, and it just my life went in a different direction, and I loved being behind the scenes because I felt like I could always help the on-camera talent and select good guests because I knew what needed to be taking place on screen. And that's one of the things that always drew me to you because you and even when I would pair you with Joey Jackson, the humor, the light-hearted back and forth really was great TV. So
Yeah.
I always enjoyed having you on the show. I think you're a wonderful legal analyst, and I'm really glad you could join us.
And I'll just add that
Yeah.
I love Joey Jackson and I do an incredible Joey Jackson impression because Jamie, at
Oh,
my
well, now you're
core,
gonna have to do it.
all I am is a mimic. That's all I've ever done. I just look at what other people do and I copy it. And my Joey Jackson, here's the way. If you want to do a great Joey Jackson, here's how you do it. There was a broadcaster many years ago, Howard Cosell. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Joey Jackson listen to old Howard Cosell's, and they used to do impressions of Howard Cosell because he was so, he had such a distinctive New York voice. Here's the way to do it, Joey Jackson. You got to do your Howard Cosell, but you got to spend the first 8 seconds thanking everyone and sort of reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, because he leads into his legal analysis, which, you ask him a question. Well, thank you for asking me that. And God bless everyone. It's a beautiful day. So glad to be with you here today. Now, he's already burned 7 seconds by which he's been able to think of his answer. Joey's brilliant. I love Joey. He's amazing on TV. I copy him because he's the best.
Thank you so much for being here. And for those that are listening, I'll have a link to everything that Danny has going on right now. If you want to connect with him, you could follow him on LinkedIn. Also look at him on Twitter, which I still call Twitter, but is X.
Do it.
And you can also find him online. I'll make sure his website's down there as well. Thank you so much again, Danny.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again for listening. Be sure to listen to other episodes from Unknown to Known. We do have conversations ranging from TV anchors to reporters to film producers and on-camera talent that span across entertainment. So listen to Unknown to Known to get your head around showing up confidently on camera. And listen to Think Like a Producer to start putting your thought leadership into action. I'll see you next time. Bye.